let me just say how happy I am to be with families. And as a father, I hope you're not going to ask me for money, because I don't have any. But I tell you, I'm very glad to be in Bonn in this weather, because I landed in Munich under 1 degree yesterday, and I thought it was going to be the same here in Bonn, and I came in with 14 degrees, and I was a happy man. And I know that most of you come from homes like mine, warm weather, and it gets cold, and I've been told that it's going to get colder, so we need to prepare ourselves for it. But we are ready for COP23. I want to tell you that we're ready for COP23. And I need the support of the family to be with me for this COP, especially for this COP. This is our COP, Island COP, and I need the assistance and your continued assistance with me in conducting this COP23. My team is going to talk to you about the processes that we have prepared, and of course the 5 high-level deliberations. But you know, the Talanoa dialogue that we've talked about, and I think I mentioned this in the Pittsburgh dialogue, that in the Talanoa dialogue, back home, most of you know, those of you that come from the Pacific at least, know that when we have a Talanoa dialogue, we have the cover sessions. We treated, for those of you that came to pre-COP, we treated the Assistant Director General, Secretary General to the United Nations to cover session. And she said it tasted like river water. To me, it tastes like dishwashing liquid. And the more you drink it, the more it tastes like dishwashing liquid. But back home, as you know, for us Pacific Islanders, we all sit around the Talanoa and talk of nothing. And that's exactly what we're going to do in the Talanoa dialogue. Unfortunately, we don't have enough grog to pass around. But I've been told that I need to invite you to a grog session, so be prepared for dishwashing liquid and talk about nothing when we get together. But that's exactly what's going to happen. But I'll pass the mic across to my 2 ambassadors here, who will talk to you about the technicalities of the issues that we want to talk about.
In terms of our priorities for COP23, first of all, I think it's really clear that this cannot just be a working COP. That we've got to reassure ourselves as the global community that we really believe in the pre-2020 pathway, and that we continue to believe in the spirit of the Paris Agreement. And it is that passion, that determination, that must then determine the success of individual agenda items or individual priorities for the presidency. And I think of those priorities, at the top must be the work on the Paris Agreement work program. So we would like to see substantial progress on the Paris Agreement work program. And we're aware that not all agenda items are moving in the same way. And we're aware that some are progressing much, much better than others. We do not want to see that a lack of progress on any one agenda item should hold back the whole package. So we would like to see progress on individual items, but an overall progress on the entire package. We would like to see what, at pre-COP, states asked us to produce, and that is substantial progress which is going to provide the basis of negotiations for the implementation guidelines at COP24. So really substantial progress, as much progress as possible towards negotiating text, and certainly a basis for negotiations at COP23 with clear guidance from the presidency as to how we are to proceed next year. So that's what we would like to see at COP23, and we really look to you. We know that in this room is a collection of states which shares that vision with us. You also want to see progress. So we'd like to work very closely with you to achieve that substantial progress on the work of the Paris Agreement implementation guidelines. On the Talanoa dialogue, for those of you who have checked the website this morning, the features for the design of the Talanoa dialogue is already up on the website, on the UNFCCC website. We would invite you to have a look at it, and we are going to have another consultation on the Talanoa dialogue on the 7th, that is Ambassador Aziz and I, and we would really welcome your views as to how you see that we have progressed and whether the design or the features of the design already up on the website reflects your views and your expectations. But very importantly, we really wanted to bring this specific methodology of having dialogue. And of course, the purpose of the Talanoa dialogue is to enhance ambition and to inform the NDCs. And so therefore, it's really important that this is talking for a purpose and that it is based on the specific methodology of storytelling in order to build trust and empathy in order that we can collectively reach a conclusion which is for the collective good. That's how we see Talanoa, and that is how we hope that you will share with us this specific method of talking. So that's the progress on the Talanoa dialogue. We hope that at COP23 we will be launching the design for the Talanoa dialogue, and we hear you very strong and clear that you would like us to continue to be involved in it in a leadership capacity. And of course we do hold the presidency next year, and so of course this is an important responsibility for us to continue to be a part of that. In relation to other work programs for COP23, you asked about the high-level events, and if I can just summarize those very quickly. One is very relevant to the loss and damage issue, and that is the high-level event that we're sharing with Germany on resilience and risk insurance. Just to pause there for a minute on loss and damage. The Warsaw International Mechanism was very, very difficult to negotiate, and most of the people in this room know that very well. And so if we start to do anything that looks as though we're reopening negotiations on the Warsaw International Mechanism, there's a danger that you lose the baby with the bathwater. So it's very important that we make the Warsaw International Mechanism work for us, work effectively and work in a way that ordinary people benefit from the mechanism. So we would like to see it effectively working. We would like to work with you on that. And it's very important, therefore, in the context of loss and damage, that as many of you attend as possible the high-level event on resilience and risk insurance, at which there will be the launch of a clearinghouse on risk insurance. So we're looking that I think is a very important high-level event for AOSIS in particular. Another is on UN policy coherence, which is supported by UNFCCC and by the presidency. This is a high-level event that looks to better coherence amongst UN agencies on climate policy. And the purpose of this high-level event is to assist stakeholders, namely national governments. So in other words, to what extent can nations benefit from better coherence in the United Nations and its agencies on the climate policies that it delivers and the programs that it delivers? Again, a really important one for small island developing states. There is a high-level event on health and climate action. You're aware that health is already a component of the Nairobi work program, but one question that we should ask ourselves is how effective is it in advancing the work program on health, and whether we should now look at whether we should have a more ambitious work program for health. Certainly in the Pacific health ministers met this year, and they asked this very question. And so one of the questions to be asked at this high-level event on health is whether we should be looking at some kind of reporting mechanism by WHO to COP to ask about the effectiveness of health as an output, and whether COP should be looking more closely at health in a more focused work program. And last, there is also, fourthly, a high-level event on climate change. It is a technical briefing on climate change and human rights. So there will be also a focus in that particular briefing on just transition, on green growth and green jobs, which will be very useful, I think, for you to follow. And lastly, a high-level event on 2050 pathways, which is supported by the platform, which was founded by Laurence Turiana from COP21. So all 5 high-level events, I think, of real relevance and interest to you. Lastly, I want to say that we really, like you, look forward to the launch of the Gender Action Plan. We have followed it very closely. We are very passionate about it, and we hope that it will lead to real integration of gender with climate action. It will lead to more gender-balanced national delegations and more integrated gender climate policies, both nationally and in terms of international governance. We also look forward to how SUBSTA is going to deal with making operational the Indigenous Peoples Platform, how it is going to ensure a stronger voice for marginalized Indigenous groups in climate policy. We really look forward to following those discussions. There is also an open, what we call an open Talanoa, a CSO observer and state dialogue, which was of course mandated at COP22. We would really urge all states to attend. That particular dialogue is not going to make any sense unless the states attend to talk to the observers. So that is going to be moderated by a climate ambassador, Ambassador Sharon, and we would invite you to attend. That is, I believe, on the 8th of November. So having said all of that, happy to take any questions, but I'll just hand over to my colleague who has been following AOSIS, is our focal point in AOSIS, and who can also wish to contribute to this.
There was a specific question asked by the group regarding loss and damage and the linkages between transparency and global stocktake. The President would like to make it clear to the group that the issue of loss and damage is one of the top 5 priorities of the Presidency. And also would like to convey to you that Fiji's position on the issue of loss and damage is the AOSIS position on loss and damage. If you can imagine the President, due to the nature of the appointment and the responsibility that will be undertaking during this conference, it will be bridled. And therefore would look to the group to advance loss and damage on its behalf. So we are encouraging the group, our colleagues who are coordinating and advancing the arguments on loss and damage, to please proceed without restraint. You will not find the President at any time during this conference standing in your way. If anything, you will probably have its shadow casting a support on whatever the group is desiring to be the outcome of loss and damage. I thought I should just bring that to the group's attention, in addition to the words of caution that was earlier articulated by Ambassador. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I thought it was the general need.
Thank you very much, Amjad.
One of the ministers from climate action plans,
I think we, on this as a member of the family, we certainly would like to wish you all the best. We will be with you throughout the end, because I think at the end of the day, your success is also a success. We really need this to be successful, and rest assured of our support and cooperation, and certainly we will take advantage of the open door policy that you have in terms of trying to advance things. But once again, register our support to you, and God bless. Thank you.
Presidency, Prime Minister of Fiji, incoming President of
maybe not so pleasant outcome of the Copenhagen COP, where it is, of course, being Bonn. Bonn is the UN headquarters, and, for example, accommodation and other aspects that probably when we place demands and requests.
I just want to thank you on behalf of Fijian's team, COP23 team, for having us, inviting us to your meeting, and I hope that your coordination meeting has been useful. I'd like to also express my personal gratitude to Africa for all the support granted to Fiji, and look forward to the same at COP23. Of course, you know that Fiji is coming to COP23 with two issues that we want to raise. One is that of matter of urgency, and the other one is of unity, and that is something that we want from all member states, all parties coming to COP23. They want unity. We've spoken with G77 in China and the Oasis, and of course now with you, and we hope that there will be unity at COP23, and of course we come with a request, a sense of urgency to move the Paris agreement forward. We have, you will have heard talks of the Talanoa dialogue. I'll have our ambassador, our negotiator, talk more on the issues that you need answered, if you have any questions raised. But I just want to convey to the African group how important this group is in the UNFCCC process. And we look forward to friends from Africa for support at COP23. We also emphasize the need for a strong start to COP23 and for the smooth adoption of the agenda. We want to emphasize the importance and the needs for equal progress in all agenda items. And we look to the African group and other negotiating groups to assist in this respect. We want to convey our important, that it is important for Fiji's presidency that Africa and the G77 and China remain united, as I've said, and encourage the building of bridges with others in the spirit of the Paris Agreement. And we encourage the group's effective participation in the discussion on the Talanoa dialogue you will have heard. I just want to conclude by saying that the COP23 President team stands ready to assist the Africa group throughout the conference. We have mentioned in the past meetings that we have an open door policy. My office is across the room from here. So if any of you have any issues with anything at all, please don't hesitate to come and keep the door. Don't keep the door open, you might spoil it. But please come and talk with us. Talk with us on any issues that you want to discuss. I'll rest here, and I'll pass the mic across to my two colleagues here on the left, who will explain some of the issues that we've talked about. Thank you.
As the Prime Minister has explained, the success of COP23 does depend to a great extent on the progress that we show on the Paris Agreement implementation guidelines. And so we really are following closely the negotiations around the guidelines. We are very, very aware that the progress on each agenda item is not uniform. but that is to be expected, that it should not be uniform, but we do hope that the fact that progress is not exactly the same on each agenda item should not hold back the success of the entire package. We heard a very clear message at pre-COP from states parties that they wanted us now to provide at COP23 a solid basis for negotiations next year, and we understand that very clearly. We also understand that states parties expect from us clear guidance for how the work program is going to be developed next year. We heard that very clearly also. So we're working very closely with the subsidiary body chairs to ensure that there is progress on the work towards the implementation guidelines, and that progress is in fact reflected in the COP decisions at the end of this session. We also are very happy to say that the features of the design of the Talanoa dialogue is up on the UNFCCC website, and that it reflects closely the results of the consultations that we conducted with you, with Morocco and with you. And therefore, you also are aware that the Talanoa dialogue is based on our own cultural values of having dialogue, and that involves this tradition of storytelling, of building trust, and of making decisions for the collective good. And we feel that this is a form of dialogue which is constructive, it is inclusive, it does not involve blaming people or finger pointing. Very, very important for not just enhancing ambition under the Paris Agreement, but also ambition in relation to pre-2020. So the Talanoa dialogue and its result is one that is very, very important, and we think the methodology will help to deliver a good result for the global community. In addition to those very important outcomes for COP23, we're looking forward to a number of agenda items which have developed since COP21. One is, of course, the Gender Action Plan, which will come to fruition under this COP and will reflect the integration of gender issues into climate policy, both in terms of national delegations and in terms of international global governance of climate policy. Also, we're really looking forward to how the Indigenous Peoples Platform is going to be made operational under SUBSTA, and how under this platform, the voices of Indigenous people who are marginalized can be better heard and better integrated into climate action. So these are some of the really, really important outcomes of COP23 that we look forward to working on with you. In addition to that, we're looking forward also to the clearinghouse on loss and damage, on risk transfer. And also there are 5 high-level events which I'm sure you've already heard about, and which I'm happy to explain if there are any questions about the high-level events. So happy also to answer questions in relation to any other aspect of COP23.
In Fiji at COP, during the pre-COP, I think that the African ministers who were there pledged their support, and for this COP we'll have very high representation from Africa. The coordinator of the African Heads of State on climate change will be here. The President of the African Union will be here. The President of the Climate Commission of the Sahel region will be here. The President of the Climate Commission from the Congo Basin will be here. So I think this is again testimony of Africa's commitment and support to you, to your leadership and presidency at the highest level. The points, of course, which have been raised at the negotiation level are known to us. The work plan, ensuring balance across all the thematic areas, whether this is under the APA or elsewhere, in alignment with the decision in Paris, the guidelines. I think this is very, very crucial. We also understand that your presidency will will go way beyond this COP. And this, as much as negotiations are concerned, I think climate diplomacy is also a reality right now. And we believe that Your Excellency, you should make use of all the spaces and opportunities to move some of our strategic interests. And I think they are quite the same. We're all very much interested in pre-2020 ambition, where this comes to whether it's mitigation or finance. And we hope that in your position as COP president, that you'll pay attention to the delivery of the 100 billion, which is critical, having clarity on the delivery of that. But you'll also make sure that there is a balanced approach around all the issues, adaptation, mitigation, and finance. There's one specific request from African heads of state in the last key message to us, which is to initiate at COP23 the negotiation on the new finance goal. We do support the Talanoa dialogue in Durban on African soil a few years ago. We also presented the Indaba, a very African way, in an African way in terms of addressing some of the very difficult challenges that we have. And we are a serious region. We have 53 out of 54 African countries who have submitted NDCs. African heads of state have engaged with regional NDCs or regional initiatives. Whenever there is a meeting of African heads of state, there's now a decision on climate change. So this is very much important to us. And we think that we must make use of having, for the first time, a small island state as a president to really move beyond the procedural issues. I'm very much sure that we will organize a very efficient dialogue, a very successful dialogue, but there are concrete urgencies which needs to be tackled. And definitely from this group you'll have total support and on really exploring to the extent possible all the ways and means to be able to advance the cost. Whether that's at the technical level, at the ministerial level, and as head of state level. So we really hope that you'll be quite innovative, quite creative, quite bold, really, in addressing climate change. But you would really go beyond just making sure that Paris mandate is approved or Paris mandate is conducted. We hold this to the process and to our people. So we just want to give you maximum freedom in exploring all the spaces and opportunities to move this way beyond Bonn, way beyond New York. We'll have our full support. Thank you, Your Excellency.
And know of diversity in the African state with regards to your geography. Some are landlocked, some are coastal, some are island states, and or most of you know. Fiji is a small island developing state, and we are standing here. We come to COP23 as president to represent vulnerable states, and so we, as I've heard, all your top officials are coming. That gives us an understanding of your support for our presidency. But let me pass it across to, again, to Ambassador Shamim about some of the issues that you've raised, and maybe she'll bring us to talk about the technicalities involved.
Thank you, Prime Minister. And we are absolutely aware of the importance of this COP, not just to Fiji as a small island developing state, but the symbolic significance of Fiji having the presidency at this particular time. And we're very honored and privileged that the leadership that the presidency requires of us is given to Fiji at this time. So we're very aware. It's a quite an awe-inspiring responsibility for us. Many of our team have expressed the view that they've never done anything as significant before in their lives. So we can assure you that we are taking this very seriously. We do not think that our responsibility ends at COP. We know we hold the presidency next year in perhaps one of the most demanding years of climate change history. And we also really look forward to working with the African group with its known commitment and the many special vulnerabilities that we all share in moving forward in this global goal. So thank you also for your message of support. We really value that. Thank you.
Merci, Président. Juste un message que j'apporte au président de la COP 23 et vient avec 3 minutes.
To succeed in that very huge challenge. Thank you.
So South Africa, this is our English, and then we'll have DRC.